Welcome to the RCI GDAS webinar. The title of the webinar is Using Technology, Finding the Future of Home Technology for Seniors. It will be presented today by Laurie Orlov. Before we get started, let's cover a few conference details. If you have a question during the conference, we ask that you type in the question. All questions will be answered at the end of the conference. Also, if you are at your own computer station, a post-test survey will pop up at the end of the webinar. There will be 10 questions about the webinar and personal information questions such as name and email address that will enable me to send you your certificate. If you are not at your own computer, copy down the link that is posted on the last slide of the presentation. Use the link at your own computer to complete the post-test. Certificates will be sent within 1 week after the closing of the test. Due to many of our areas having bad weather today and probably for the rest of this week, we are going to have an extension on the time that you can take the post-test. So I'm going to ask that you complete the post-test before February the 26th. We are now ready to begin. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you so much. So what I'd like to do to start off today is to tell you a little bit about myself, my background, and Aging in Place Technology Watch, which was founded in March 2009 at the What's Next Boomer Business Summit. So for myself, I've spent 24 years in the IT field and then 9 years after that in industry analysis about the technology market. What I did after that is I became certified in geriatric care management, and I became a long-term care ombudsman for several years and became very interested in the market of technologies that can help older adults in their home and the caregivers who care for them. So first point I would like to make is, what is successful aging? It's important to think about this because the technology that we want to consider is the technology that will help us age successfully. So successful aging has been defined to be able to do things for myself, to feel safe, and to have good health. Therefore, aging in place and the concept of it is the ability to age successfully for as long as you want in your home of choice. And if you are a care recipient, to be able to remain in your home of choice for as long as you want. So go to the next slide.
Okay, I was on the title one, so I'm going to go to the one with the triangle.
Yep.
Okay.
So aging in place depends on connected relationships. And let's talk a little bit about those relationships. At the top of the triangle are what I now define as the real senior. Because of our lengthening lives, which I'll talk about in a little bit, the new longevity has raised the bar for what is, quote, senior. And it's my belief that the real seniors are now the 75 plus age range, and we'll talk a little bit about life expectancy in a bit. But those are the real seniors that today need to be better connected to the service providers. That's the bottom left of the triangle, which could include doctors. It could include geriatric care managers. It could include any form of professional service that is being delivered to seniors. And on the bottom right part of the triangle are family and family caregivers, as well as professional caregivers in the home, what I call the last, not the last mile, but the last few feet of the relationship with older adults. And what we want to do is connect those various constituents, because a tighter connected relationship between all of them, including information exchange, is important in order to provide the best care for older adults. And it has been said that before the technology revolution, the village took care of you. And now what we will have, and we do not yet have, but we will have an electronic village that will help us deliver the kind of care we want. So where we are in today's society is we have 40 million people who are age 65 plus. 27% of them live alone. We have 17 million people age 75 plus. We have more women than men, and 46% of the age 75 plus live alone. We also know that assisted living facilities today have become the new nursing homes of yesterday, that the average age in assisted living is 87 plus. The populations in assisted living are mostly women. So it's clear that people are deferring the move into assisted living until as late a point in life as they can, and therefore they are remaining longer in their home, and the people who care for them, which could include a range of professionals, need to connect to them in a better way than we're doing today. So let's go to the next slide. It's important to understand that everything is changing today, and it's changing fast. And so the question is, how can we leverage it? Technology is now very miniaturized. There are tiny sensors that can actually help in every aspect of our lives. They can detect whether there's too much moisture in our home, therefore we might have left the faucets on, whether our houses are too warm, whether we in fact are having changes in our gait and slowing down. Quite a few capabilities are now available through technology. But as you may know, some of the most popular technologies like Fitbit or Nike Fuel or some of these other technologies are not adapted to seniors. And they could be adapted in activity analysis, and they're small and they're cheap and they're wearable, but people have yet to identify the appropriate market. The next major technology change is mobile broadband and GPS. So we now have the ability to set a zone of where it's appropriate to be and detect movement in and out of that zone. So this is a capability that can be used for wander management. And can we tell, for example, if Mrs. Smith is lost? We now also have video and the ability to Skype and chat with people very easily. And it is device agnostic. That is, you can run video and Skype capabilities on a wide range of devices, and you can be anywhere. That is a really interesting change in technology, and the question is, have we done enough to leverage miniaturization of sensors for older adult applications? Have we done enough to leverage the use of GPS and tracking capabilities? And have we done enough to leverage the use of Skype and video chatting and video exchanges for people who are long distance from the care recipients and for service providers who may wish to in fact connect to care recipients and caregivers? The other change that's happening now, and I believe it will drive the adoption of technology in a significant way, is the lowering of reimbursements for hospitalization for both doctors and hospitals. This is a really interesting change that makes it more appealing to treat people in sort of remote diagnostic type ways, especially if they're in rural areas. The VA is very serious about telehealth and remote care provision. Medicaid is increasingly serious about this. Medicare is thinking about it in the context of rural care and not so much yet for Medicare recipients in urban areas. But I believe that's going to change in the very near term. And then finally, the last point to make here is that home care has grown into the most profitable franchise in the United States as of 2012. So we have all of these trends that are going on. People want to stay in their home. Home care is the most profitable franchise. The question is, how can we provide better technology for people who are our parents, our family members, our care recipients, better technology that makes it a more positive experience and well cared for experience in the home. Next slide. So it's important to see how technology change can be daunting. And one of the things I love about this slide is what it says. The telephone says to the smartphone, when I was your age, we didn't play video games, we didn't locate things, we just did one thing, and we took our sweet time doing it. Today, as a society, we now have too many technology choices. We have tablets, we have phones, sometimes we have more than one phone. I can't tell you how many people these days I'm seeing who have multiple phones. And the clamshell phone, which was a cell phone for many of us for many years, the one that sort of folded in half, actually is going to make a comeback in the next few years in the United States. And one reason is because it was really good at doing one thing, which is providing a good listening vehicle for being a phone. But today, with all of these various technology choices, none of them are quite right, none of them are quite functional enough, and to date, smartphones and tablets are adopted by 20 to 22% of the 65-plus population. One of the reasons, or actually three of the reasons I think the adoption is slower than it might be, is that the screens, using the screens is an awful experience, that the cost of internet carrier plans is still too high, and awareness and perception of the utility of these devices is low. That does not mean, however, that the devices are not useful, but what we really need to do is we really need to provide feedback to people who sell these devices and provide the internet service plans, the carrier plans like Verizon's and Comcast. We need to tell them what it is we want for both caregivers and care recipients. Next slide, please. So the move to eliminate paper is a rather amazing trend that is, in many ways, should really be driving the adoption of technology for older adults. And I don't know that this was what was originally intended. But in 2003, the Paperwork Elimination Act was passed by the federal government. And the idea was that it was supposed to legitimize using electronic documents. However, what happened actually was the flip side of that. It began initiating really the elimination one thing at a time of paper statements and paper materials that enable people to interact with the government without actually having an internet connection to them. So you know by now that Social Security paper statements were eliminated in 2011. Paper savings bonds, the ability to buy a paper savings bond instead of buying one online, that was eliminated in 2012. 1,118 bank branches. There were fewer of them in 2012 than there were in 2011. Banks are really motivated to move customers online. We have all kinds of discounts today that are available only online. You know about Cyber Monday and online-only discounts. You now require a waiver to continue to receive paper Social Security checks instead of direct deposit. Social Security offices have reduced their office hours, and all of these moves were made independent of the statistics about technology adoption and internet access of older adults. Next slide, please. So in the first part of this, one of the things to think about has to do with life expectancy. And it's important to know today, and that's based on people who are 65 years old today, that on average across all of them, they are likely to live 19 more years if you're a man and 21 more years if you're a woman. 1 in 4 of today's 65-year-olds is going to live to be 90 or older. Today there are 5 million seniors who are age 85 plus. According to the Alzheimer's Association, there are 5.2 million older adults who have dementia. So if you go to the next slide, which should have the women curve in it, the bar about women in the ages, I think, of 25 to into their 50s. So if you go to that slide and take a look at it and think about it for a second, what we've got is a situation that ARP describes as the care ratio issue moving forward in the future. And what ARP's most recent public policy report about this care ratio was that today we have 7 available people in the appropriate age ranges to care for people who are aged 80 and beyond. By 2030, according to the ARP policy report, there will be only 4 people in the appropriate age ranges to care for people who at that point will be age 80 and beyond. And of course that population will be the ever amazingly large baby boom wave that will at that point be moving through their 80s. So the caregiver ratio is really about the availability of women who provide most of the care out there, whether it's institutional, home care, home health care, or family caregivers. What will be the availability of women in whatever age range you'd like to pick. ARP, I believe, picked the ages of 45 to 64. That availability will not rise as fast as the population. Meanwhile, we always need to remember a 2007 study put out by ARP. It was by Clarity, did a study in 2007, and this has been quoted everywhere, that seniors fear nursing homes worse than death. So if you look at the average cost of assisted living, and now we should be looking at a slide that has all these lines on them. The average cost of assisted living in the United States is in 2012 was $43,000 per year. There are 735,000 residents today in assisted living facilities. There are 1.38 million seniors today in nursing homes. Across all care types, adult day, adult assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities, and home care, there are 8 million seniors being served by all care types. The worrisome thing, I believe, for all of us to consider is that home care today is a booming but unregulated and still high turnover, high profit service that may in fact be as worrisome, if not more worrisome, than one-on-one care provided in an assisted living or a skilled nursing facility. And I say that because we don't have a lot of good information about the standards for home care that would apply across all 50 states of the United States. Finally, it's important to think that home care is very expensive if you actually had it for 24 hours, 7 days a week. At $20 an hour, it would really be an outrageously expensive experience, but only $9 to $12 an hour across the United States directly paid to the care worker.
Laurie,
I know there's a lot of legislative effort here and there.
Laurie, what is the slide I should be on? What does it look like?
The next slide is going to be titled Care Recipients Across Boundaries, and it has 5 circles on it.
I have it then. Okay.
I finished all the slides about graphs.
Okay.
Okay? So it's all important to understand that care recipients cross boundaries and their information doesn't always cross with them. And worse, the transitions are not necessarily good for their health, for their mental state, or for care quality. So consider that you may go from living independently, you could move to a senior housing residence, you could move to a hospital for some particular acute incident, you could be released. Let's say you have a hip fracture. You could be released to a rehabilitation skilled nursing facility. You could then move home where you have a home health aide or a companion aide, and perhaps you won't need those anymore and you go back to living independently, and perhaps the cycle could repeat. One of the questions to ask, one of the many questions to ask is, what medications does a care recipient take? Is that information about their medications following them through all of these transitions? What is their diagnosis? Is the diagnosis accurate and following them through all of the paperwork that may pass from place to place? What is their cognitive status? Does their cognitive status change as they transition from place to place? Who are their family members and where are they located? And is that information passed from place to place? Who are the treating doctors and what is the treatment status? Next slide, please. But their information today does not always follow them. There is a lack of collaboration and appropriate handoff of information across boundaries. And this was written about in a report I wrote a couple of years ago called The Future of Home Care Technology, which is a free report you can read on, from my website, which will be displayed at the end of this webinar. So what you want to have is, from location to location, you want information about the care recipient to follow. But too often it is faxed or it follows later after the person has moved. Sometimes they've moved with no information following them. So one of the things that we wonder about the organizations that are participating in the care of an older adult is there a fear of sharing information? I had a doctor tell me that there was a pecking order between the doctors and the home care agency, and that the doctors, of course, felt that they were in charge and might not, in fact, share information as easily with home care agencies. And this was a doctor in a very large hospital system with its own home care organization associated. The question is their vocabulary the same across all types of care? Are care recipients at risk from the lack of communication from the prior organization? Are their activities of daily living capabilities or their instrumental activities of daily living capabilities, are they tracked and detected as to whether they decline? Has there been a geriatric care management assessment? What are the diagnostic codes associated with them? And are people at risk in these moves? I think we all have our own stories about a care recipient having a drug allergy or a gap in the information that's communicated and the information that should span across care locations does not. Now I believe that within care types there is an effort to do a better job of transcending the limitations of clipboards. We know that electronic health records, if you're all in the same system, electronic health records increasingly can be shared, but we have a long way to go. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the future of home care technology research. So in that report, we had 315 responders across the following job types that should be displayed on your screen, starting with home health aide at the top. Those 350 responders, however, spanned 34,509 workers. There were some very big home care and home health care organizations represented in that research. All of the survey responders were supervisors of staffs, some of them very large staffs. So the question was, who do you supervise? And if you can look at this chart, this is the graph of who the responders supervised. So let's go to the next slide. So we then asked them how they communicate across these entities charted at the bottom. You can see families, care recipients, my own staff, and other managers. And you can see that the telephone still is the dominant form of communicating with families, followed by email, perhaps followed by text, and certainly communication capabilities that could be of great value, perhaps having a secure family portal or having some kind of Skype camera for direct conversation and dialogue, and instant messaging had not really made it into the world of the care recipients and caregivers connecting. If there was instant messaging and texting, it was going on internally in the home care or home health care organization. Go to the next slide. What were the communication technologies used by the survey respondents? While there was a lot of talk about iPads, in this particular survey, the responders basically responded, as you can see, the dominant technology was a cell phone, followed by laptop PCs, desktop PCs, and so forth. Very little in the way of remote video consultation, either with family or professionals like dermatologists. Now I believe that in 2014, 15, and 16 we may see that change quite a bit. Hopefully we will see that change, especially in rural areas, but hasn't changed at this point. So the other thing we asked them about is safety technologies which could help keep the care recipient, in fact, safer. And so we asked about what technologies do they know about versus suggest to families and are familiar with. And you can see from this that, and what are reimbursed by Medicare and insurance, and you can see very little was reimbursed by Medicare or any form of insurance. We saw the longest bars about technologies that were suggested to families, including personal emergency response pendants, mobile personal emergency response pendants, or even automatic stove shutoff technologies, all of which exist. But we did not see reselling of those technologies or any form of reimbursement, really. Go to the next slide. So we did another study, the Linkage Technology Survey of seniors aged 65 to 100 that was done in November of 2011. And what we asked a question there that I think is very germane in terms of how we think about technology in older adults, and that is, how do older adults want to learn about new technologies? And while we did find that 21% of the responders in that survey were not interested, we found that 41% of them, if you go to the bottom bar and take a look at that, 41% of them actually believed that they wanted to learn about technology from their doctor. And I actually find that a rather sad point, because we know that doctors today are not in the business of training older adults on technology. So let's go to the next slide, which starts out who is not online. This survey is very recent. It is the September 2013 survey. And one of the things that the Pew Research study points out is that only 15% of the United States population is not online. So therefore, you could easily say that being online is a way of life. But 44% of the 65 plus are not online. And it certainly is not a standard operating procedure for those who earn less, live in less urban areas, or are less educated. So the oldest, the poorest, and most rural of seniors are the least likely to be regularly on the Internet. And even if they are on the Internet, the chances of them having broadband in their own home so they could be continuously connected at a high speed is very low. As of April 2012, the last survey date on broadband, on Internet access for the 76 plus, which was surveyed by Pew, that was at 34%, and broadband, that is high-speed access, was at 21%. So seriously speaking, are we really expecting non-adopting the real senior, 75 and beyond, to go to Starbucks to access the Internet? And one of our big barriers is the price of continuous high-speed Internet connection in the home is still too high. So let's go to the next slide, which is starts out 4 aging-in-place technology categories. Okay. Before 2010, there was no iPad. When I started writing about it, no iPad. In 2009, there was no mobile personal emergency response technology. There was no fall detection technology. Today, mobile personal emergency response technologies, which is represented in the upper right-hand corner in the safety and security category, mobile personal emergency response technology is now more than 10% of the personal emergency response market. Today, we have wireless everything available nearly everywhere we go. If you look at the upper left-hand corner of this puzzle, the communication and engagement corner, we today have the ability to send and receive emails, to do instant messaging chat. We can play games online. Everybody loves many of the online games that are available, including for people with dementia. We can use video and Skype. We have cell phones, we have smartphones, we have tablets, we have PCs, we have Macs, and we have God knows what coming very soon to a retailer near you. In the bottom left, we have the learning and contribution capability, which very recently has started to show us all of the massive open online courses, or MOOCs, available in the market. That is free courses available if you have a high-speed Internet connection from institutions like MIT, from Stanford, from Harvard. We have the websites like Retired Brains. We have websites that we can take. There's actually a way to take telephone-based continuing education courses. We have many websites for learning about work opportunities. These massively online course capabilities, these MOOCs, the average age of the participants today, sadly, is age 36. They are not used by either boomers or seniors, and that's really unfortunate. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner, this is the health and wellness category, and this is where the mobile health applications, telehealth, medication management, disease management, chronic disease management technologies are really rocking and rolling, moving right along. There are fitness technologies out there mostly used by the young. And there's also cognitive fitness technologies that are available to help stimulate our minds. So if you go to the next slide, which should have an oval in the middle that says caregiving. Yes. Caregiving, in my opinion, is an overlay to all of the categories of technology we're talking about. That is the ability to find care. There are software companies creating software platforms for home care. There's applications for home care. There's family portals. There's portals for finding voluntary caregivers within a family or a peer group like Lots of Helping Hands. There's Share the Care. There's Caring Bridge. There's all these websites. All of them are free for enabling caregivers and family caregivers and professional caregivers to participate in the care of an older adult. Sharing information is certainly up to the willing and technology capable. In 2008, ARP published a report called Healthy at Home, in which they reported that 66% of seniors very much wanted to stay involved in their communities, and that 57% want to learn new things. And those MOOCs that I told you about in the prior slide, those massively online capabilities offered by Harvard, by Stanford, by Berkeley, and so forth, those are perfect for older adults. And they're not just the ability to learn about engineering or technology, you can learn about history and all kinds of things, and they're all free if we only had access. So go to the next slide. And in this slide, we're showing a wave of organizations that are available to help people find care. So you show caring.com and Home Instead and Live Home and CareLinks, CareZone, Care.com, Caring Bridge. All of these are organizations that would be of great use to people depending on their circumstances and what kind of care they were looking for. Care.com actually just went public. They have recently entered into the ability to find senior care. Caring.com is very much about finding senior care. CareLinks is very much about finding non-agency home care. Caring Bridge is very focused on end of life. CareZone is very focused on managing the documents associated with care, and so forth and so on. If you go to the next slide, which starts out, a wave of technology exists to help seniors and their care recipients. That technology is at a variety of cost points and is appropriate for dealing with a variety of care conditions and circumstances. So Optelec on the left is actually a fairly expensive magnifier of book pages for people who would like to read books and may have some low vision situation that makes it impossible to do so with books. Of course, we also know that Kindles enable enlargement of type so that you could read books online. The CapTel 800i is very interesting. It turns out that captioning of conversations for people who are hearing impaired is a free service. It turns out all you really need is a device, and you can have a phone conversation with a person who can hear and speaks to a transcriber who transcribes the conversation, and it's displayed on a display window for the person who's hearing impaired. Care Innovations and Grand Care are both in the remote monitoring care capabilities. Great Call has smartphones and cell phones for seniors. Independent in the middle is a remote monitoring and communication capabilities for managing the circumstances of care recipients. I told you about Skype. We talked about, well, you can get a senior phone from VTech, that's at the bottom left. You can use something like a mobile help, which is a personal emergency response button. Mobile help now offers a fall detection capability. You've got MedMinder in the middle, which is to help you manage the medication regimens of older adults. TV ears, so that one person in the living room can have the TV amplified through these headsets and be in the same room with a person who can hear the television without amplification. And Readio is an online environment for grandparents to read children's books to children who may not live near them, or volunteers to read books to children who may in fact not be co-located where they are, where they both access the same already loaded online book and can turn the pages and read aloud. So let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about if the care recipient had dementia. The top left of this screen, you see this particular device, Trilock's GPS locator. This enables you to do what I described, geofencing. Also, you know, the Alzheimer's Association has Comfort Zone, in which if you're wearing a device, it can tell using OmniLink, it can tell that you've wandered out of the location for which it's appropriate to be with that device. In the middle, Be Close is a sensor-based home monitoring system to enable one to know, in fact, if a person leaves the room and doesn't come back in. Pointerware is something for making standard laptop computers easier to use with an application that has quite a low subscription price and has been translated into at least 7 languages. There's also, not shown on the screen, all kinds of cognitive fitness technologies out there. Just mention a few of them. For brain training, there's Posit Science, there's Lumosity, there's Dacom Empower, Cognifit, and MindFit. These are all tools that can help people who can still use computers to make their minds sharper. None of them have been proven to stem off dementia, but all of them can help sharpening the mind with specific tasks that they train in. And in particular, Posit Science has the ability to sharpen one's ability to see things coming towards you in your peripheral vision. They can actually train on that kind of thing. And that's a very useful skill for what we know to be a fairly large population of older adults still driving who may not have the best peripheral vision anymore. So SecuraPal in the middle of the right side, this is a tracking technology. If you're wearing something like SecuraPal, you can be tracked again through that sort of geofencing idea. The bottom right is BAM Labs. That's a bed sensor capability that enables one to know when a person is getting up out of bed. There's actually a number of these out on the market today. The one in the middle at the bottom, Choral Health and Choral Faith, this is the ability to schedule music or spiritual content at particular times of the day when a person could be sundowning, let's say they have dementia, or they could benefit in rehabilitation from some kind of acute health issue. You can schedule something that will provide them with comfort or provide them with stimulation and something that would calm them down if they get agitated. And the bottom left is the Sengistic Stove Guard, which is a device you can install for ensuring that the stove is not left on. There's also, not shown here, Jerry Joy, which is a tool for people with dementia. And it's a tablet-type device that if you interact with the dog that's on the screen, they have people who will actually manipulate it from the other side, and the dog will respond to touch. And there's the much talked about Pero seal, which is being promoted in Japan. That is a responsive seal for people with dementia. They hold the seal and it can respond to their touch. I think it's a bit of a problematic product. It does require cleaning of the skin and no clarity as to who actually will do that. If you go to the next slide, these are examples of other technologies for seniors and their families. I talked about Dacom a little bit. The Clarity has an amplified cell phone that actually amplifies the sound of the caller's voice when using that phone. The right side of the screen is Philips Lifeline with Auto Alert. Next one down is It's Never Too Late, which is actually being used in dementia care. And it's pretty successful in dementia care as a way of loading up information that's about a particular care recipient's family and enabling them to look at pictures of their family or videos that they found appealing or listen to music that's appropriate for them, in addition to It's Never Too Late's other capabilities, which involve video associated with rehabilitation. I talked to you about the CapTel 800i, the Wii. You probably all know about Wii Bowling and Wii this and Wii that. And Connected Living, a system that's now being used in many senior housing facilities as an engagement technology for seniors. And Microsoft Connect, which we're going to increasingly see in therapy and rehab as a system that enables you to use hand motions to interact with the system as opposed to having to touch or hold a controller. And then Telecon is an easy-to-use senior computer, which is sold by First Street Online as the WOW computer. So let's go to the next slide. On this slide, these are some very new technologies for 2013 and 2014, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, largely because they're very new. But I do want to mention an interesting idea. There's in the middle. So on the left side of the middle screen, you see Verizon Sure Response with convenience calling. Sure Response is a personal emergency response device. It's mobile, and with it, you purchase 60 minutes of talk time. That talk time can be used to interact with the call center in Ohio, and the call center can actually give you directions for where you're going, help you find a restaurant, or help get food delivered to your house from a local restaurant, which I kind of like. That's convenience calling, or almost like a concierge service. On the right is something called Sensomat, and this is a sensor device for wheelchairs. And if a person doesn't move enough in their wheelchair to avoid getting pressure sores, this device will actually notify somebody, a caregiver, on their smartphone that says, Mr. Smith in his chair hasn't moved quite enough. So I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the technologies that are in the market, but I want to point out that one of the great problems with technology in general is that 20% of the benefits from them are the technology themselves, and 80% is the ongoing support, training, and services. So if you don't think about the support, training, and services, the technology will be a very limited benefit. So let's go to the next slide about the staircase of usage of technology versus life events. What I wanted to show here is that we have these life events that actually cause us to become both more interested in technology because we may now be living alone, perhaps we lost a spouse, we may now be becoming more frail, or we may now have a chronic disease we previously didn't have. Perhaps we're at risk of falling or not managing diabetes properly or whatever. And that is the traditional staircase of life events that causes our doctors or those who care about us to potentially propose the use of personal emergency response and other types of perhaps telehealth technologies. On the right side, there's a parallel movement going on, largely participated in by the young. And what you see there is the staircase of quantified events. First you can quantify steps, that is, how many steps did I take today, and am I taking 10,000 steps a day, which might be my goal. You could detect whether there's a change in my step behavior over time. You know, is my activity declining over time or increasing over time? Am I achieving some kind of goals? Am I becoming more fit? Am I becoming more well? The quantified self movement, like I said, is going on in the marketplace today, completely supported by technology. The technology in both of these examples of staircases of technology usage, the technology is largely the same, but the use case and the marketing direction is different. So think about that and ask questions when you see technology being promoted. Is Fitbit, is there a Fitbit for seniors? Is there a step tracking capability that would be able to detect decline in activity over time? Is there a gait analysis capability that comes along with some of these fitness technologies? And in the case of the traditional personal emergency response to technologies, can they also show movement and movement changes over time? And are the PERS vendors actually marketing that? Because everybody can do everything I just described. The question is whether they want to, whether they think the customer wants it. So let's go to the next slide. So this is a slide simply showing you the personal emergency response system market and the capabilities that are in the market today, from the bottom left, simplest type of device that you can program to call 911 when you press the button, to the most predictive technologies on the upper right, which can actually predict a change in Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith's behavior over time based on analyzing differences in patterns. And I just want to make it clear that all the technology has been invented. The important thing with the upper right-hand category is that we need to know a baseline of what is Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith's baseline, detect that pattern that is their baseline, and then monitor changes in their behaviors, and then predict possible problems they may be having, including urinary tract infections, which can be predicted from the basis of moving in and out of bed on a frequent basis during the night. So that's all the kinds of capabilities that are already available today, and dementia care in particular could benefit greatly from the use of many of these technologies, and consumers are not demanding it, and providers are for the most part not providing it. So let's take a look. The next slide says Home Care Information Network, and what I believe is going to happen in the future, and there are some vendors who actually believe that they're going to be capable of delivering such a thing, is there will be a hierarchy of secure information that can follow care recipients across the boundaries of where they move. So if you think about a hierarchy of what once was described by Maslow in the Maslow needs for what do we need in our lives, well, here's the information we need in our lives to follow care recipients across boundaries. You can see at the bottom it's pretty important to know their medications. Next up, it's pretty important to know if they have any health conditions. Next up, it's pretty important to know what their activities of daily living capabilities are. Next up, it's pretty important to know not only do we know a lot about the person, but you also know who their family members, their contacts, who are those people. And the highest level, we need to know what is the social interaction and cognition capabilities of people in our care. So who benefits from all of this information being shared? Well, the beneficiaries are certainly the care recipients, but also the care providers, the social workers, the therapists, nurses, doctors, everybody in the circle of care in dealing with a particular individual, especially an individual who may be likely to move from care location to care location. And how will it be shared? Someday it will be shared on a simple little tag or a card. Today it's shared inside closed systems, or it's printed on paper. And the question is, who will fund and develop and market this shared resource? Well, certainly there's a lot of talk about standards in the home healthcare industry, and certainly in the healthcare industry. When it's a complete benefit for all participants to have such a thing, I'm sure the government will also participate, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, in developing shared resources. So the next slide is where we need to really talk about whose job is it to get everybody adopting technology. And what I want to say is, even though I've shown you that usage of technology is moving up, what I've also shown you is that adoption is not adequate. So it's important that value must be demonstrated and reinforced. To enable seniors to access services that are increasingly visible only on the Internet, inadvertently we've taken capability away from them. We society, have taken capability away from them. If we wish to reintroduce it, whether through its Internet connections, use of tablets, or whatever it happens to be, there must be adequate training for getting people up and running on new technology. Are people aware of the training options? Are they familiar, for example, with what ARP did recently in Atlanta at their Life at 50 event, and they would now like to do more of it out in the various regions, which is train older adults to be comfortable with tablets, and in fact do so in partnership with local 4-H clubs and get high school students involved. So what you need to do is sit down and think about the training programs you know about today. You need to speak up and ask those who sell devices, those who provide Internet services, what are they doing to get families and seniors connected and get them connected to the service providers and care providers that they need to be connected to online, so that we don't see the loss of capabilities. And to the degree that there is value being demonstrated and there is training being done, it must be repeated, reinforced, done again, refreshed again. So let's go to the next slide. This slide is simply to show what the market for technologies to help us as we age. And the list on the right are all of the technologies that can help us and are in the market now or will be fully in the market by 2020. The market has been sized to be a $30 billion market by 2017 by a company called Semico Research. Accenture writes about it. KPMG has written about it. It is a big market. What we really need to have is all organizations must think about a strategy that underpins the product development and their go-to-market. And we, the consumers, are the only ones who can tell the product companies, the technology companies, what we need. And the next slide is the last slide, which has my internet contact information. And I thank you very much. And at this point, if we have any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Yes, everyone. Well, thank you, Laurie. Please type in any kind of questions you have, and we can keep an eye on Laurie's webpage right there, as you can see it, www.ageinplacetech.com, and we can keep up with the things that come out and the things that are happening. As she says, it's going to be a growing business. We're going to wait here for some questions. I'm going to give everyone a chance to write down that website so that you can visit it, and then I will move to the next slide that will show you the link to the post-test for everybody. But I want to give everyone a chance, if you have any questions, to type in anything. Laurie, I can tell you that the little gadget that I saw about the stove, I think that's pretty good, because I know I have personal friends that, their mother has left the room with the stove on, and it's caused concern in the families. So I was glad to see that gadget from a personal standpoint.
Yes, that's a great gadget, the synergistic stove guard. Mm-hmm. There's also, I think, one of the things that may be in the market soon is certainly the capability for it is there, is moisture detection that would tell whether the faucets have been left on in the house inadvertently. So that would be another, if you think about the stove and the faucets, right. Those are two great examples of things we use all the time that we may forget about, and we could end up with quite a problem.
That's right. It's a lot of damage to your home. Okay, Bill asked the question, I guess this is to me, will this presentation be available to print, and can it be emailed to those who would like a copy? Bill, it will be on the Rosalind Carter website as always. All of our webinars are archived. I usually get them done the same day. Of the lady that does them is in the office, and she is today, so this should be online at the end of the day. By the end of the day. Candace, she says, can we get a list of these companies' services from your website? Yes, I've gone on Laurie's website. Laurie, would you like to address that, though?
Yes, if you go on to ageinplacetech.com and you scroll down to the left side of the page, what you'll see is a whole series of reports, one of which is the one I quoted from, the Future of Home Care Technology and the Linkage Technology Survey, and there's a report called the Next Generation Response System. A lot of these graphs and pictures came out of those reports. Those reports are free. You just have to click on it and open up the report, double-click on the PDF file of the report, and you can see the report and print it.
Well, great. And I have advanced the slide for those that are not sitting at their desk for you to get the address to the SurveyMonkey post-test. And while we're still waiting to see if we have any other questions, I did want to tell Laurie one other thing. A friend of mine also had invested in those cameras, and that she could watch on her smartphone or on her computer. And her being the primary caregiver, she did have to work. And she was able to watch the aides, that took care of her mother, and, and to see if they were following her direction on certain things, as far as getting her mother up to exercise. And that was a great peace of mind for her.
I totally, I agree with that. A lot of people say, well, you don't want to have webcam access in the home because it's a privacy invasion or what have you. But I think it's a peace of mind capability especially for situations with home care. And then if you also have a device in which you can have a video chat with a care recipient, an older adult at any time of the day, now we've got a wonderful thing. We've got the ability to monitor a worker in the home, and we also have the ability to communicate with both the worker and with the senior.
That's right. And it was no secret to anyone. I mean, the aides and her mother, everyone knew it was there. So, it just kind of kept everything good for everyone. So, all right. Well, at this point in time, I don't see where anyone else is asking any questions. So I know the weather is bad out there for some, so I hope everyone stays warm and safe. And Laurie, I wish you good journeys. Laurie came to us today from a remote location for us. That's why I was advancing the slides. So we thank you again, Laurie, and everyone have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Please stand by.